Hello everyone, and welcome to this month's tutorial on all of the innovative ways you can use whiteboards in AHA roadmaps. My name is Claire George, and I'm on the product marketing team here at AHA. Next, I would love to introduce you to Sarah Moisan-Thomas. Sarah is the product manager for our whiteboard capabilities here at AHA, and she is extremely passionate about building a solution that helps product teams think through new concepts and then seamlessly bring those new ideas into your roadmap. But before I hand over to Sarah, who I know is super excited to show you all of the possibilities, I'd love to take a moment to share a little bit more about the inspiration and the journey behind our whiteboarding capabilities. So we first introduced whiteboards as part of our roadmaps back in June of 2022, with the sole purpose of giving product teams a dedicated visual space to really help you drive product innovation. So much about product management really requires creative thinking, whether it's thinking through concepts on your own or riffing on different ideas and approaches with others, which is why product managers find whiteboards to be such a flexible and honestly just invaluable tool. This actually feels like a really great opportunity to pause and find out how you like to use whiteboards as part of your everyday work. So you should be seeing a poll appear on your screen right now. I'd love you to take a moment to answer the question. So what do you use whiteboards for? We've listed some of the most common use cases that we're seeing, which is sort of brainstorming new ideas, early stage planning, prioritizing work, visualizing new user experiences and user flows, and then gathering feedback from stakeholders. If you are choosing other, we would love to hear how you're using whiteboards in different creative ways. So perhaps you could drop a note in the Q&A. All right, let's take a look at the results here. So it does look like brainstorming is there at number one, and fascinating just to see all of the different ways, kind of, which is really what we were thinking. Just there are so many ways with the flexibility of whiteboards that you can just bring them into every aspect of your work. So that's really awesome to see. Well, to pick back up on the story of introducing whiteboards into AHA roadmaps, it was really clear to us that whiteboarding capabilities address a number of just very important needs for product managers. But we also heard from so many of our customers that you really wanted a better way to transition that bridge from going from your early stage ideation to building out your structured roadmap plans. It can be really frustrating when you're having to switch back and forth between different tools and have information in different places. So here at AHA, we love having a good challenge to solve. And this was one where we knew that we really could make life easier for product teams everywhere. So we decided to do something about it and really focused on building a solution that is uniquely tailored to meet the needs of product builders. With a focus on really three key things. We wanted to enable you to just shift context seamlessly throughout the day as you go from brainstorming and creativity back to your structured planning. We also wanted to eliminate that need for manual data entry. Once you've captured ideas on a whiteboard and then you need to go and re-enter them as like maybe epics or features in AHA roadmaps. And then I think thirdly, just having that space in AHA roadmaps to do all of that early stage collaborative planning that happens as you work with different stakeholders and teammates to get aligned on your plans. So if you've been following along over the last 18 months, we've introduced just a bunch of really innovative functionality to help you in all of those areas. So some of the highlights include building out a template library, which is now just chock full of visual frameworks and best practices to help with all aspects of product management. So Sarah will be showing you some of the newer templates that are available, but really we just wanted to help folks get going fast rather than having to start from a blank canvas each time. We've also introduced some really exciting ways to bring AHA views like a pivot table or a list report onto a whiteboard so that you can just interact with your data more freely, which is super helpful when you want to gather feedback from stakeholders. So you're kind of quickly thinking through the best way to approach your plans, and then you want to update those details back in your roadmap. I just love the flexibility that it really gives you with that sort of free-form format of a whiteboard. So we have lots of fun things to show you today, which I hope will inspire you with the possibilities, which feels like the perfect time to hand over to Sarah so she can show you how it's done.
Thank you, Claire. And hello, everyone. I'm really excited to show you today some of the unique ways that you can use whiteboards seamlessly as you work in AHA roadmaps as an integrated part of that. Before I do that, in case any of you haven't tried out whiteboards before, I'm going to give you a quick view of where to find those in AHA and cover the basics of what you can do. So if you go to the Notebook tab, you'll see the Add button here, and that is where you'll have the option to create notes or whiteboards, or even links to documents in another workspace, or potentially even another tool. So you can really organize all of your documents here in a single place, so it's easy to find. You can, of course, organize those into folders here in the left-hand hierarchy to make it really easy for all of the teams who are using this workspace to find the information that they need quickly. And as Claire mentioned before, we really wanted to tailor our whiteboard solution specific to the needs of product builders. So one of the ways that we did that was by building out this library of templates. We know that product managers often rely on a variety of different models and frameworks to help us think through and solve complex problems. So having a launch pad here to get started in any of those frameworks can be a big time saver. So whether you're looking to create maybe a concept map or think through some jobs to be done or conduct a SWOT analysis, we have some beautiful templates in here crafted by our team of product experts to help you showcase your best thinking and get started quickly. As you can see, they're organized into different categories over on the left-hand side, covering all the different aspects of product management work that we do. So let's open up one of these templates. I'll use our jobs to be done template. And I'll click that blue add use template button, and we'll create a new document here. You can see that we start out with a really rich, beautiful template here that we can start adding content into. And if we come over to the right-hand panel, I also have access to some best practices and some guidance around how to use this template to its fullest extent. So some tips and tricks on how to make the most of it. There's also a completed kind of filled out example version that you can add to your whiteboard if you want to see maybe some inspiration for where your template could end up and what it should look like at the end of the day. And while we're in this whiteboard, I will go through some of the different shapes that you have available to you for illustrating your concept. So over in the left-hand panel, or the toolbar, is where you'll find all the shapes and content that you can add into a whiteboard. So that includes things like text boxes, all sorts of different shapes, from basic to more advanced shapes that are really focused on product manager use cases. So things like interactive timelines and progress bars as well. Later on, we'll dig into our wireframing tools, but we also have a wide library of icons that you can use to enhance your whiteboard as well. Coming on down here, you'll see other familiar tools that you might be used to using, like sticky notes, connectors, a drawing tool, as well as frames to organize the content of your whiteboard so it's easy to navigate. And of course, you can also add things like emojis, images, and additional templates to this whiteboard from here. And then from the bottom right-hand corner, that's where you're going to find all of your navigation tools. So zooming, panning, and also the ability to add some comments. So you can see that just the core whiteboard functionality here is already rich on its own. You can visualize anything that you need to, and we make it really easy to collaborate with unlimited guests who can join you on this whiteboard and collaborate with you to define your plans. So I'm going to move on to the really exciting stuff about how you can work with this as part of AHA roadmaps specifically. So I'm going to do that by focusing on 3 of just the most common ways that we see product teams using whiteboards. The first is brainstorming and prioritizing ideas. I know that was the top response in the poll, so it's great to see that you all are using that today. The second will be refining early stage plans. And then the third, we'll take a look at visualizing new user experiences. So let's imagine you are evaluating some ideas for a new area of functionality. In our case, we want to expand the integrations that we offer for our fictitious Fredwin cycling app. So we're going to use a prioritization template. It's a really nice and simple way to start thinking through the value of a potential feature versus the effort, so we can decide which ones will have the highest impact to our users. So I already brainstormed some ideas in here using just adding sticky notes either from the template or from the toolbar here on the left-hand side. And I'll also pull in an idea that we have from our customer portal that they've submitted. So I'll open up our ideas page and navigate to one of our most popular ideas, which is an integration with smart bikes. I can click to copy the link to that idea and then just really easily paste it into my whiteboard. And when I do that, you'll see that it gets added in as a record card. So I can see the full details, the dynamic information from that idea within my whiteboard. And if I click on that, It'll open up that left-hand drawer where I can see the full details and edit those again directly from my whiteboard. So you don't have to do the step of kind of copying and pasting information between different tools. It's a big time saver. And then it's helpful to have it stay up to date as that record evolves over time. You're always seeing the latest and greatest on your whiteboard. So I will drop this into my matrix at a place where I think would make sense. I'll put it over here. It's a high effort, but also high value. And now it's time for me to share this whiteboard. And we have a few different options for sharing that I'll walk through. So if I come up here to the share menu in that blue button, you can go to the workspace tab. I could copy a link to share with people who are in my workspace, even choose which permissions my reviewers should have. Maybe this is something that we need to let all of our stakeholders collaborate on and add ideas. So we could set that to give them edit access. I could drop that link into maybe a to-do for them to review this asynchronously because our teams are all very busy. And then we could come back together for a conversation if we need to. So I'll jump ahead in time to after our stakeholders have all come in here and shared their feedback and opinions. So they have hopped into the whiteboard, added some new ideas from our ideas portal, as well as some new ideas and sticky notes that they came up with on their own. So tools like the emoji reactions here that we can add, as well as inline comments, which will open up in the right-hand panel. These are great ways to get feedback from stakeholders in design or development, sales, support, leadership. It's really a great way to collaborate on these documents and make sure you're getting the information that you need to align with all of those stakeholders and make sure that you're getting their feedback and their ideas represented in your process as well. So we've added some great feedback here around which ideas we want to move forward with, and we're ready to pick some that we want to implement. So I can select those sticky notes for the things that we want to work on as ideas. And if I right click, I can actually convert those into ideas in AHA. So a really quick way to move from your unstructured data in a whiteboard to actionable work items. You can see there a link icon appears, so I can open up that drawer. And if I prefer to show that as a record card rather than the sticky note, I can also toggle it over through the shape type menu in the toolbar. So really easy and flexible to show the information you need in a whiteboard and have access to all of your data at the same time. And as the last step, we're going to take this new idea we had and promote that into a feature so that we can start working on that and add it to our roadmap. All right. So let's quickly recap what we just covered in this brainstorming use case. First, we saw that you have the ability to paste record links into a whiteboard, which will generate that card that you saw with flexibility to move it around, but still have access to all of the latest and greatest dynamic data within that record, because you can always open it up in the drawer to edit or view those details, and you don't have to leave the whiteboard. To share your whiteboard, navigate up to the share menu and view your different options here. You can choose who to share with, whether they're inside or outside of your account. You can access and share as a guest. So this would be a way to share with users outside the workspace or outside of even your AHA account. You can share a link with them or invite them specifically by email, and they could log in with a free account to collaborate on your documents with you. And then you can convert any whiteboard shape like these sticky notes into actionable work items and promote ideas into features on your roadmap. So you don't have to switch between different tools to actually create those actionable work records. Okay, thanks for following along. Now that we know which of these ideas we're going to be pursuing, let's take a look at how to refine our big plans. So whiteboards are really a perfect place to do that collaborative planning session with your different stakeholders, because you can move work items around really fluidly, whether you're discussing the trade-offs that might need to happen or figuring out the best way to sequence work. Often that's a very collaborative discussion cross-functionally. And so it helps to have some flexibility as you refine those plans before you commit to that plan and then implement it. So this is where it gets really fun. I'm going to move over to a pivot report, which Claire mentioned earlier. And I can actually export a view from a pivot report, a list report, or even the features board or prioritization views. You can export those views into a whiteboard. So you can easily move those items around and then quickly update your plans as you need. So to pick our story back up, let's imagine that we are planning out exactly what we want to build over the coming months for our quarterly planning. So we have this organized here with our different features and grouped by the workspace and the initiative that they're in. So let's pull this into a whiteboard and bring the team together to participate in that planning session. So if I come up to the Add To menu in the top right, I can click Add to Whiteboard as Records. So that's going to pull in those dynamic records, and I'll add it to my existing quarterly planning document. So when I do that, it's going to actually take that same format from the pivot and recreate it in an interactive whiteboard table. So this is great. And it also brings over all of those dynamic records as well, so we can get right into this planning. So we can move features around as we figure out the priorities and timing and allow us to craft a high-level delivery plan in this interactive whiteboard. So we can plan out the quarter. Maybe we need to space these out a little bit more so the team has accurate capacity for it. So we have a solid structure in our whiteboard, and we've shared it with Claire and Catherine so we can facilitate a discussion and improve our plans in a live collaborative session. So we can move all the cards around as we're talking and see everyone's changes come through in real time. We could also maybe add some sticky notes for new ideas if things come up that we want to consider during our process. So this is a great way to brainstorm as an entire group and make sure you're aligning on the plan together. And before we decide that we're ready to move forward with this plan, we need to consider some of the dependencies. So the benefit of having this actually be your real AHA data is that we can show those dependencies in a whiteboard as well. So I'll come up to the More Options menu and click Show Dependency Lines. So this is going to visualize those dependencies that already exist in your data here in the whiteboard. So maybe we decide we need to move some of these dependencies around so that we have time to work on them without impacting the other team. You can also drag those arrows around to make sure that you're not blocking any content on your whiteboard. So you can always pull those around or customize those if you want. And as part of this conversation, we've identified yet another dependency that we need to capture here that we didn't realize before. So I can easily add that by opening the drawer for a record. I'll come over to the Related tab and then link it with our other feature. Smart device integrations, that's our dependency there. So I will add that in. You're looking for things that are depends on, impacts, or blocks. Those are the type of dependencies that will show up in whiteboards. So I've added that to the actual record. And if I come in here, I can refresh the dependency lines to show that as well. So now that one shows up and we can plan accordingly and make sure that all of our teams will have the dependencies sorted out early on in the process. Great. So at the end of our planning session, we've aligned on which teams are going to take on which of these high priority projects for all of our different initiatives. So now when we're ready to commit these changes and actually move forward with that plan, it's easy to select your different records, right click, and then you can bulk edit to maybe assign those to a certain team or a certain release or initiative. So you have the flexibility of moving things around really fluidly in a whiteboard while you're talking about and having those discussions. And then at the end of the day, when you're ready to actually commit those changes, you get to easily and quickly update that data across all of those records. Okay, we covered a lot there, so let's recap what we just saw. You can export a report to a whiteboard to interact with your data in a more flexible way without having to copy and paste between different tools. And from sticky notes to reactions and comments, we have a variety of tools available to help make that collaboration really seamless. You can highlight dependencies on a whiteboard to increase transparency and accuracy while you're refining those plans with the team. And at the end of all of it, you can easily update it in bulk when you're ready to move forward with those plans. Okay, so today we've seen the ways that you can brainstorm with your team and refine these early stage plans. Now we need to define the user experience for this feature that we've just worked on. So I will click into our smart bike integration feature that we've been talking about. And I already have a pretty good description here defining the behavior that we're looking for with this feature, but sometimes it's easier to just illustrate a concept to get the point across for everybody. So I have embedded a whiteboard directly in my feature description. I did that just through the plus menu in the toolbar. You can come and add and embed a whiteboard into your description or other text fields in AHA. So I will double click to open this up in full screen mode so we can see what we have here. So we laid out just a simple user flow diagram for what this new workflow will look like so we can get alignment from development and design and maybe some stakeholders or subject matter experts to make sure this idea will work out well with our customers. So I'll add a few steps to this user flow. Of course, we have our shapes menu full of different shapes, but another way to really quickly diagram is to use a couple tips and tricks. If you hover over the blue plus button and click it, you'll get a duplicate of your last shape. So it's easy to go in and add a new step into this diagram. Or another approach is to click and drag if you want to select maybe a different shape. Maybe there's a decision point that has to happen if that fails. Right. And of course, you can customize the appearance of this and color code it the way you need to make it really easy to consume. Great. So now that we've defined what that user flow should be at a high level, let's sketch out an idea of what this could look like to our end users. So we're going to create a low fidelity design to help the UX team better understand our vision. So we're on the same page moving forward and maybe identify any assumptions that we need to change or make sure we're all aligned on. So I'll go to the shapes menu here, and we're going to hop down to the wireframe section. I started off with this phone device frame. So I added that in as that's the primary user interface for our customers, and I can start adding more components within that device shape. So for this simple page where we're syncing with your smart bike, I added a dropdown to select the type of bike, and then a few text input fields where the user would be able to log in. And to finish it off, I will add a button. I can update the label on that. And in the toolbar, I'll have all the different formatting options that I need to really customize this. So I could change the style of how I want that to appear. For this one, I could control the state. Maybe at this point, I want it to be in a disabled state because they haven't entered their credentials. So you could make it disabled, as well as customize the appearance of it. And I'll add an icon as well. There we go. So this is a great way to really quickly illustrate an idea so you can get everybody aligned on it and iterate on it quickly before it moves into full design. I like to add annotation shapes from the shapes menu to help call out some expected behavior for what I would think would happen at each of these different steps and communicate that to the team. So we started here from just a kind of starting from scratch in this wireframe. Wireframes are part of our advanced functionality in whiteboards. But if you want to get started and inspired fast, we do also have some templates for different wireframing flows. So you could check those out to get inspired and see some more long form examples than just this one screen. And of course, for a lot of our teams, we're not necessarily building new user interfaces from scratch every single time. A lot of the time, we are iterating on an existing design that we already have that's already out in production. So I want to show you another tool, which is helpful for refining a design quickly using the clip tool to cut out sections of a screenshot or an image in AHA Whiteboards. So you can easily repurpose your existing designs and communicate that desired experience. So I'll show you how that works. I'll add an image. You can also drag and drop or copy and paste one in. So this is a screenshot of our existing experience, and I'm going to do a little bit of slicing and dicing to make some changes for a new idea that we have. So from the toolbar in the image, I can select the clip tool, and from here, I can cut out actual sections of this design that we already have, and that's going to separate it out from the actual image itself. The really cool thing here is as I move that out, the background behind it is going to self-heal, which makes it really easy to remove some content or replace it if you want to move it around in different places. So I'll just have an easy example here of swapping the order of some of these tiles at the top. So I can really quickly come in and drag those around and then pop those in. So it's easy for the team to have an idea of what it is that I'm hoping that we can build. So this makes it really easy to show your thinking within the context of a feature that you're working on, especially if you already have an existing design and you don't need to switch to another tool or kind of Frankenstein it together to get a quick mock-up of your idea. All right, for our final recap, we started in the feature description in AHA Roadmaps to get context on this last use case. And then we reviewed the different shapes and connectors you can add to draw out diagrams and user flows. We also took a look at the option to create wireframes and mockups using our sophisticated wireframing components in whiteboards. And lastly, you had a chance to see how the clip tool works for modifying existing designs. I know that was a lot. I'm going to hand it back over to Claire to check in on any questions that you might have.
Yeah, thank you so much, Sarah. That was really fun to see just all of the awesome ways you can use whiteboards as part of AHA roadmaps. And I just love that really sort of fluid interaction between the kind of more free-form, flexible ideation phases and then kind of getting straight into your structured roadmap plans. So thank you for sharing that. On the topic of more structured plans, I did just want to mention that our next live tutorial next month, or actually, sorry, in a couple of weeks, will be all about planning product launches using the Gantt chart. So do join us on February the 29th for that session if you're looking to go from that next phase from your early planning into your structured planning. There'll be some great tips and tricks shared during that one too. All right, so as Sarah said, we are going to take some time now for some live questions. And thank you so much for all the questions coming in through the chat. It's been really awesome to hear some of your feedback and thoughts as we've been going along. So the first question, Sarah, was just a fairly straightforward one, but is there a limit to the number of whiteboards you can create within AHA roadmaps and the number of people you can have kind of interacting on a whiteboard at any time?
Good question. So there is not a limit to either of those. You can create an unlimited number of documents here to navigate through all your different workspaces. So you can organize those in a way that's easy to find what you need when you have that many documents. And then there is also not a limit for how many people can be collaborating in a whiteboard at one time. We've seen collaborative sessions with hundreds of users without any performance issues. So try it out, try out those big collaboration sessions. Let us know if you run into any issues. Obviously, we would want to fix those. But so far, it's been great for even those really large scale kind of collaborative sessions.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you. And which kind of feeds nicely into the next question. We had a few folks wanting to learn a little bit more about how that guest access works, and kind of like what, is the experience like for the guests? What access to functionality do they have? And, how did they access the whiteboards?
Oh, it's such a good question. Okay. So I'll come back up to the share menu. So we're talking here about how to share and collaborate on documents with people outside of your account or potentially even in your account who don't have access to this workspace. So they can't come in and view it here in the side panel. So this is how you would grant them access. You get to control the permissions. So you have full control over whether they should have the ability to just view this whiteboard and consume it so they can navigate around, or if they should actually be able to edit and contribute content to that whiteboard as well. So what that's going to look like on their end, if you either invite them with an email or send them a link, they would get that email with a link to create a free account. So then they will log into a very simplified UI where they can just access the documents that you've shared with them in perpetuity. So this is a great way to share and kind of get feedback from customers or clients or people maybe on other teams within your account, maybe or within your organization. Maybe marketing needs to weigh in on something. So a really great way to make sure that everyone is involved in these sessions so that you can have a really defined early stage plan that takes everybody's needs into account. So for them, they would create a free account and then they would have access to navigate any documents that had been shared with them.
Perfect, thank you. Which actually leads right into a next great question. So when you were sort of showing at different phases how you can convert sticky notes and things into like features in AHA roadmaps or being able to update the data, who has permission to do that? Or what sort of other restrictions on how people can interact with the more structured roadmap data?
Yes, so when you have the more structured records, this is going to be dependent on your workspace permission. So just giving someone access to edit the document doesn't give them blanket access to edit any of the records in there. So we obviously want to make sure that the changes in those records are only made by users who are allowed to do those. So other users would be able to see the records, but they wouldn't be able to actually edit any of the information. So it'll depend on their workspace permissions.
Yeah, definitely. No, thank you for clarifying that. And then just another clarifying question that we had was when you move in this particular example on the pivot table, when you were moving some of those work item cards around, was that actually updating any dates in AHA roadmaps?
Excellent question. Not yet, but I hope someday that is the plan so that as you move things around, this would update into the release that is associated with that column. So that is somewhere that we want to go in the future. Right now, it is not associated with actually changing that underlying data. So if you want to change the data, just open it in the drawer and change in this case, maybe the release that you want to have associated with that. Or you can do that for bulk, select a bunch of these, and then just do the bulk edit to assign them to a different release. I think that's a really compelling workflow for us to think about more in the future. But we also have the case where you want to be kind of fluid and flexibly finding these plans without it actually affecting your underlying data. So a lot of, for example, quarterly planning sessions, you have a big discussion first where you're trying things out, playing around with different scenarios. If we do this, could we do that? And so you don't necessarily want that to affect every single change. So we're gonna look in a way that we could handle both of those different use cases where you get to be in control over whether you should be updating the underlying data as you move things around. So definitely something we'll look into in the future.
Very good. Thank you very much. So I think we have time for just a few more questions. We had a question about our templates. So some really positive feedback on seeing all of those beautiful templates in the library. Is it possible to modify them, create your own templates? How does that element work?
Yes, both. So we do have all of our built-in templates. You can take these and tweak them if you want. So maybe you want to kind of use our existing templates and then change them to your organization's branded colors or add some of the steps that you need to have or your own terminology. So you can tweak those and then really easily from the more options menu, you can save it as a template. You can also start from scratch and build your own templates from scratch and really quickly reuse those again and again within this workspace in the future. So you can definitely create your own custom ones, and those will show up in the template library in this workspace tab up here.
Very good, thank you. There was a very specific question, eager to hear a little bit more about some of those advanced shapes that you were talking about, in particular the timeline component and the progress bars.
Definitely. So these are some fun ones. Again, we're going back to that shapes menu. So these are a little bit above, a little more interactive than your standard rectangle or triangle kind of shapes. So these are a little more built towards some of the views that product in particular often needs to create. So I'll start with the timeline tool and place that in. So this is an interactive timeline. I can control both the formatting of it, the visual formatting, as well as control what information I want to show there. So I can control the time frame and either drag the appearance larger on a whiteboard or use the handle if you want to expose additional time. So I can just click and drag this out to show additional months there. So something that I would like to do is maybe add a table underneath this so I can start aligning things again in that kind of early stage planning use case. So it's a quick way to map out, okay, what is coming up and when do we think we could target some of this work? And then if you want, you could pop in those record cards that we saw before or sticky notes as you're brainstorming throughout the timeline. Or we also have some if you want to create kind of a really flexible visualization of your plans. You could add a progress bar or milestones. I'll add, maybe this is feature A. And then you can show a little bit of the progress for it and control the formatting. Maybe you want to show this on the left-hand side instead. So you can sketch out these kind of lightweight plans that don't necessarily map to your structured data in AHA. Sometimes you need a little bit of that wiggle room to think about, well, if we did this and we think that would take, maybe that would take these 3 months, then what could we do? So we're talking very early stage, flexible plans. This is just another way to visualize those while you're figuring those out.
Fantastic. Well, I think that was a great question to end on. So I would just like to take a moment and thank you all for joining us today. Hope you were able to learn something new and that it's inspired you to kind of play around with the whiteboard functionality and just discover some new ways that you can use it as a built-in part of AHA roadmaps. So thank you once again, everyone, for joining us, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.